Good evening, Mizzou fans. Welcome in to the Bruning Law Firm postgame show after another winning week for Dennis Gates and the Missouri Tigers, 83-65 winners over Arkansas. Drew King, Gabe DeArmond here with you, overlooking the court at Mizzou Arena. The chat, Drew, I don't know if you've been reading along, is already out of hand. We are in for a big night here on the post-game show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you guys that our post-game shows all season long. Guys, this is the definition of buy low and make a good investment. The Bruning Law Firm jumped on board with us to sponsor these shows when Missouri was coming off 0-19 and nobody knew what to expect. Well, now everybody's paying attention and we're getting big crowds here, and we want to tell you about the Bruning Law Firm. They have your back when you need them. Talented team of personal injury lawyers who use data and experience to achieve real results fast. A smarter approach, better results. Get the relief you deserve quickly so you can get back to life. Call the Bruning Law Firm for a free consultation at 573-400-2796, 573-400-2796. AJ and his team want to take care of you. Missouri just taking care of SEC basketball teams again. Drew, I got 2 or 3 texts during the game tonight after a couple of similar messages on Tuesday, and the query was very simple. Are we good? We ready to say that? We ready to say this team's good?
I at least am ready to say that they're pretty good. If you weren't convinced with the Florida win, I think this put a punctuation on it. Like, yes, we are good, period. I don't have many critiques for them from this game. I thought it was a pretty well-rounded game. Obviously, like, first half was a lot better than the second half, but to win by 18 against a really talented Arkansas team like this, I think says a lot.
Yeah, Logan had just asked, is this team better than Dennis Gates' first team? I mean, I think that remains to be seen. That's about consistency, right? Because that 2022 team had a really high ceiling when they were good. You know, they beat some really good teams. This team has a really high ceiling. I don't remember offhand if that team strung together 4 straight SEC wins. I'll go back and look at it while you're talking about it. But the last 2 weeks, look, you don't want to be playing your best ball, and we'll talk about this. Dennis Gates said he doesn't think they are. You don't want to play your best ball in January, but the last 2 weeks have been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do better than back-to-back sweeps, right? They swept last week and they swept this week, and I think obviously the competition was a little bit tougher this week, and they still got the job done. And I would honestly, they looked more impressive despite it playing tougher teams. So I kind of agree with Dennis Gates when he says, like, I still don't think we're playing that well. Like, you can poke a lot of holes in kind of how they played today, and specifically in that second half, and also the second half against Florida. But even where they are right now is still probably a top 25 team in the country, and they've got more room to grow. So I think if you're a Mizzou fan, you can't help but feel really optimistic about where the season's going.
So I did just go back and look. That Dennis Gates' first team was actually 7-7 in the SEC, 19-8 overall. They then won the last 4 games of the regular season and beat Tennessee in the first round of the SEC tournament. So they did at one point have a 5-game SEC winning streak, just kind of for the record. Look, what was more impressive? Not in the result. Look, Florida's better than Arkansas, right? I think we know that. Yeah. But what was more impressive to you? Getting the win in Gainesville on Tuesday night, or coming back in a situation where I thought it would have been pretty easy to have a letdown and not having that letdown?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of called it a must win, and it's kind of a moot point now because they won the game. But like, I was still expecting Arkansas to come out throwing bombs at them, right? I had this as like a 6-point game in my prediction, and Missouri won by 3 times that amount. So I think, like you said, Florida's the more impressive win, but I think performance wise, to shoot 70% from 3 at one point in the first half. Like, that's outrageous. That's a team that cannot be stopped. And so I think that kind of they looked better at certain points during this game than they did at Florida. Specifically,
they certainly go ahead.
Sorry, specifically in that first half with the outside shooting, but go ahead.
Yeah, they certainly looked better, I think, start to finish in this one, but I think that also has a little bit, like, Florida had something to do with how they looked. But from the 1840 mark in the first half to the 14-15 mark in the first half, so that's 3 minutes and 25 seconds, Missouri went on an 18-0 run. It was 18-2, game over. Like, I understand there were a couple times, like, Arkansas didn't quit. Missouri didn't win by 50. But at 18-2, that game was done. There was never a time. The closest Arkansas got was 10. And there just wasn't any time really after 18-2 where I thought, oh, they're actually going to make a serious run at this.
Yeah, it felt a lot like the LSU game in that respect, where, like, as soon as they got up big, there wasn't really a path for the other team to ever get back into the game, right? Like, the defensive strategy for every team in the SEC playing against Arkansas right now is just crash the paint and dare them to shoot threes, because they can't really make them right now. They shot 21% today. I don't think it's been much better than that in the 4 games before. So, yeah, like, if you get off to a 16-point lead like that, it becomes really, really hard for the Razorbacks to get back into it if they're not going to hit a bunch of threes. They had to dink and dunk at it and play some really tight defense, and that's really hard to do against Mizzou this year, because I think Mizzou's that's back-to-back games with 83 points, 3 out of the last 4 with 83 points. This team is really clicking on offense.
And 83 is actually, I think, a point below their season average. I think they're averaging 84 for the year. Mark Byington, the Vandy coach, said after the last home game they played that Missouri was making some shots that were unguardable. I thought the same thing happened in the first 6 minutes tonight. Like, I don't think Arkansas's defense was terrible. I don't know how you defend what Missouri did in the first 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think the move to put Trent Pierce in that starting lineup has really unlocked a lot for the team too. Just the spacing, the backdoor cutting that Caleb Grill has started doing, and Mark Mitchell just being dominant inside, or not necessarily dominant, but really physical, right? And wears his opponents down. There's not a guy you can point to in that lineup and say, we can chill on him. We don't have to be worried about him. And so, like, even Ant Robinson today, like, not his best shooting game, still had 7 points. They had 5 guys in double figures. I don't know that they've done that. They definitely didn't do that last year. I wonder if they had a game like that in his first year, where they had 5 guys with at least 10 points.
Yeah. And want to encourage you guys to continue to comment in the chat. We've got voicemails coming. Like the show, subscribe to the channel, do all those things. And Drew, along the same lines, it's not just scoring. I hadn't thought about this one, but when Billy just flashed the box score up, they had 5 guys with 3 assists. I mean, Caleb Grill for the second game in a row, like a wraparound behind the back pass, Trent Pierce and alley-oop to Mark Mitchell. Like, when every guy on the floor is not only a threat to shoot, but every guy on the floor can also pass. I mean, Mark Mitchell and Trent Pierce tied for the team lead with 4 assists. In that way, like, what really stood out to me about Dennis's first team wasn't just the scoring and the steals, but it was the ball movement, right? It was there were possessions where you were getting whiplash because you were watching the ball go from one side of the court to the other 3 times. There were a couple possessions like that today. Like, this team, I think this team is better offensively than that first team was. And the reason I think that is because I think they have like that first team, they needed defense and steals to turn into points in transition. This team could score in the 80s without that. Like, they had 13 points off turnovers today, but there weren't like a ton of breakaways and transition dunks or anything.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Ken Palm now. You ready for this, Gabe? The offensive rating this year is higher than that first team from the 2022-23 season. It's not ranked as high, but the offensive rating is higher. And so, yeah, like I think specifically in the half court setting, right, that first team, your only options pretty much were let's dump it to DeAndre Golston or let's get it to Kobe in the post. If they couldn't get either of those two guys, like they were kind of sunk out there because you're kind of stuck with Nick Honor trying to drive or Demoy Hodge who never dribbled the ball. This team has a lot more options to get itself out of a jam, I feel like, because you can get it to Mark Mitchell. You can let Ant Robinson make a play. Caleb Grill might free himself on a backdoor cut. They can whip the ball around and find Trent Pierce on an open three. Tony Perkins might just bully ball his way to the rim. Like there's so many more options for this team to get the ball to the rim.
Agree. I mean, Tamar Bates has 11 points in like the first 4 minutes and 6 the rest of the game. And you guys could see Billy showing you some of the post-game stuff. And that's what I'm going to write about after this one. Look, I'm trying not to be too prisoner of the moment and fall into this trap because, of course, winning teams like each other and everything sounds good and all that. But there is starting to be a little bit of like a synergy or a feeling about this team. I'm not predicting Final Four, winning the SEC. I'm not saying those things are impossible, but like this team right now, there's something more there than I think even we thought was there a week ago.
Yeah, so and I wrote about this in my column this week, Gabe, but just to ask you, what do you feel like is the ceiling for this team right now?
I mean, you and I talked about this before you wrote that column, and I don't like to say like the ceiling is the Final Four, the Sweet 16, because the postseason is such a crapshoot and it's so matchup dependent, right? Yeah. I've seen a second seeded Missouri team lose in the first round, and I've seen a 12th seeded Missouri team come within a basket of the Final Four. So but like this team can finish in the top 4 in the SEC. Now, is it going to be easy? No, but they have already they have the best win in this league so far, winning at Florida, the best win in the country. They are blowing teams out right now at home. And look, they're going to run into a night or two where it just doesn't happen, right? But I can see this team being like a 12 or 13 win team in the SEC, which I could not possibly have seen 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I said 12. And what's funny too, Gabe, is we came into SEC playing 8, saying 8 is the magic number for this team, right? They need 8 wins to make the NCAA tournament. They're already halfway there, and we're only 5 games in. So like they could go 4-9 the rest of the way and still probably make the NCAA tournament. That's a really good position to be in. There's a lot of margin for error for them at this point.
No question. And I think, like, look, goal number 1 is always make the tournament, right? And you can't get the rest of the goals without getting that one. But that is now the bare minimum expectation for this team, right? Just getting in is like, I mean, I wrote an instant reaction. If you told me at the beginning of the year Missouri was a tournament team, that would not have shocked me. If you told me I was going to say it on January 17th, that would have shocked me.
Yeah.
18th, sorry.
Gabe, we started this week on Monday, not convinced that the tournament was that expectation.
Yeah.
Like that's wild to say, but that's how good this week has been for the team and how good they looked in both of the games. I mean, it's just really impressive the way that they pulled off those 2 victories.
Can we address the comment that was just on the screen? Missouri needs to put 2 halves together. Like the second half was not a thing of beauty, but it was fine. In 2 of their 4 SEC wins, they have led by double digits for at least 30 or at least like 29 minutes. Not the point of being up 18 points at half is you don't have to win the second half. All you have to do is keep them at arm's length, and Missouri did that. Like, I have 0 complaints about the second half today. That there was never one possession where Arkansas had a chance to win that game in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, like you talk about putting two complete halves together. They outscored Arkansas in both halves, right? Like, so they didn't lose the second half. Obviously, they didn't play to the same level, but like winning by 18, right? Winning by 18 and being up by 17 in that first half, like, would you rather them have just been up by 9 and then go up by another 9 in the second half? Is that more impressive than what they did today? I wouldn't say so. Like, I think the important part is just the end result, and the end result is they blew them out today.
Right. I mean, they've in the last 4 games, they have trailed for a combined 2 minutes and 18 seconds, I think. I mean, guys, like, if you're looking for perfect, it doesn't exist in college basketball. Tyler, appreciate okay, I want it for the record. These are not suspenders. This is a media pass. But Tyler, I do appreciate. I will buy suspenders if it will make you guys happy. I don't own a pair. I am old. I am not that old.
Also,
I also want to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I see all the comments in the chat about the party poppers. Y'all are trying to get me in trouble. I'm not bringing them into the arena. I just want to put that out there. I'm not bringing party poppers in.
Speaking of the chat, and we're going to get to voicemails here in a couple minutes, but speaking of the chat, I'm actually surprised that it's only this number, but the number of why didn't Aiden Shaw play is now at 2. Look, guys, they've won 4 straight games by, I think 3 by double digits in the best conference in the country. The rotations are fine. Like, I don't care who didn't play today. The guys who did play won a basketball game by 18 points. That was fine.
Man, like, in the non-conference, I feel like the immediate question is, why doesn't he already have his top 8 figured out? And now he's kind of got his top 8 figured out, and everybody's like, well, why isn't XYZ playing? Like, he's got his top 8 figured out. And I don't think Aiden Shaw is a part of it at this point. And
I don't know how you break into that barring injury or a slump, right? Like, why would he change what he's doing? What he's doing right now is working.
Exactly. Like, Josh Gray didn't play that much today, and he's usually in that top 8, but they didn't need him today, right? Like, the small ball lineups were working really well. Peyton Marshall got in there for a few minutes, and like, he was fine, but like, I wouldn't say he needed to be out there any more than he was. So like, if you're putting Aiden Shaw in, I guess, who are you wanting him to play in front of? Was it?
I think most people would say Jacob Cruz. And I think that's left over from like 3 weeks ago. Like, Jacob Cruz has made some plays in the last 2 or 3 games for this team.
Yeah, and like Marcus Allen had some really big minutes when Trent Pierce got into foul trouble, and closed the game, played some clutch minutes for him at least. But yeah, like, I just don't know that there's a spot in the rotation for Aiden Shaw at this point.
Right. Yeah, and like, I see questions about Trent Burns and Peyton Marshall. Guys, we're losing the plot here. Like, I refuse to spend a post-game show talking about the 11th and 13th guys in the rotation or whatever it might be. All right, so this feels like a good time real quick to jump into a couple voicemails. So, Billy, just hit us with the first one.
Gabe. No, this is Kevin from Chicago.
This is a Tiger Tape. I knew it was.
The way that Caleb Grill has been playing recently is unbelievable. Really makes me wish that he had played in the bragging rights game against Illinois. I have a lot of Illini fans in my life, and nothing would have made me happier than to have those bragging rights for another year, because we have a lot of those guys in Chicago, and this team is just too much fun to watch. I got nothing else to say. Keep on rolling, MIZ.
All right, so Drew, one quick one. Does Missouri beat Illinois if Caleb Grill plays?
I say yes.
I agree. I think they would. Okay, now here's the bigger picture thing. I don't know if you read Instant Reaction while we were waiting 25 minutes for John Calipari to show up or not, but I wrote in there, in the end, Dennis Gates' best coaching move may be sitting Caleb Grill out when he could have come back in a season that was already lost. Like, there was a time where we just figured, I don't know, throw him back in there, whatever, let him play 6 more games. It's fine. This team sucks. He wasn't any good anyway. Let him move on. And start over next year. This season isn't what this season is without Caleb Grill. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's the most important player on this team. And that move by Dennis Gates at like game 22 or whatever it was showed a foresight. And look, I think a lot of coaches wouldn't be in position to do that. Dennis was in position to do it because it was year 2. There was zero chance he was getting fired. It didn't matter if they went 4-16 or 0-19 or whatever. It was all the same. So he could do it when maybe some other guys couldn't. But I think he deserves credit for having the patience and the ability to have done it.
Yeah, I might be late coming around on this opinion, but I turned to you during today's game, and I said, is Caleb Grill the team's best player? Because he is, right? Like, what he does offensively, where he's coming off the bench and being just a complete flamethrower, bombing away from 3. And then on top of what he does defensively, where he gets his hands on a lot of deflections, he's really physical guarding on the ball. And then, like, also what he just means to the team. Like, that's a guy who it seems like everybody around him really likes to get behind, right? His energy is really infectious. Like, that's an irreplaceable player. Mark Mitchell said that last week. Like, what Caleb brings is irreplaceable. So, yeah, like, 100%, that was the right decision from Gates to save his eligibility for this year. And now it's paying really big dividends for them.
No question. And I mean, I felt like every time there was a point where I thought, hey, maybe Arkansas will make this interesting, Caleb Grill was in the middle of whatever Missouri's response was almost every single time. All right, let's go up. Next voicemail.
Who is going to beat us? I don't want to feel like I'm too high on this team, but this team just plays so well together. It seems like everyone loves each other. They just play so well. Fuck Coach Cal. He's going down. Retire him today. He's gone. Fraudulent coach. Too many fucking 5 stars. Let's go. Again, we'll reiterate. Get Cruz out of my games. He is. If this team loses early in March, the reason will be because of Jacobs Cruz. Like 5 minutes that he gets a game. But MIZ, let's go.
Okay, first of all, if they lose early in March, it will 100% not be because of Jacob Cruz. I'll just say that right now. Like, that's not going to be the reason. Okay, but let's do this. Missouri's next loss. Okay, they're at Texas Tuesday night. You think they win that?
I like their chances in that one.
I think they win that. I think they're rolling. They're at home against Ole Miss next Saturday.
That's
a good team.
That's a good team. They're at home, though. They haven't lost at home. I'll say they stay undefeated.
I agree. Week from Saturday at Mississippi State.
That's one that I'm less sure about, personally.
That's the one to me. That's the next loss. I think they're 6-1 going to Starkville, and I think they lose that. And then I think they probably also lose the next game at Tennessee, and people start to freak out a little bit. And then all of a sudden you have this home against Texas A&M, where if you win, I think it locks up your tournament bid. And if you lose, it's fine. Teams are going to lose in this league, but it will assuage some fears if the next 4 go that way, 2 straight wins, then 2 straight losses. I think winning that game would get some people off of a ledge that they prematurely have stepped on.
Well, and I wrote in my column this week, like, that stretch at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, and at Texas A&M, best case scenario is to go 1-2 in those 3, because, like, all 3 of them have been historically tough matchups for Missouri. To have 2 of them on the road and then have, big and physical Texas A&M come in your building, that's going to be an uphill climb. So I think that Mizzou's next loss probably comes from one of those 3, at least.
I think if you can win one of those 3, that's a good stretch.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go back to the voicemail.
Gabe, Tiger Terry. Just so happens that I was butchering hogs with my wife's kin up in God's country today, but while we was carving up hogs in a shed, these tigers were carving up hogs on the hardwood. You got Trevor Brazile. His balls finally dropped enough for him to show his face at the only Power 5 school that had the courtesy and grace to offer him a scholarship out of high school just for him to choke and get Mark Mitchell's foot so far up his ass he was spitting toenails, brother. And then you got Mr. John Calamari, big old contract this year, but he can't even afford to get a blazer in the color of the team he's coaching, still wearing Kentucky blue on the sidelines. That contract must have been made out in Tyson chicken IOUs. He better get himself to Men's Warehouse stat. I tell you, Gabe, Arkansas is a place where a coach's career goes to die, brother. You got Sam Tittman doing Lane Bryant photo shoots this offseason just to make ends meet. Bobby Petrino can't get a cheerleader on the back of his rascal scooter. And then you got the John Calamari retirement tour. Enjoy the NIT this year, Hogs. 2 questions for you, Gabe. 1, does it really seem like Dennis is starting to dial in this rotation and know when to use which guys for matchups? It seems like they've really got that figured out. And 2, how good is this defense nationally? How much do I love the state of Missouri, Gabe? Just like Mike Kelly, I live here. Fight Tiger.
All right, so before we answer Terry's questions, I want to ask a question. Do you think Tiger Terry writes this? Does he script this at some point during the second half? Because if he just does that off the top, I hope he's the opening act when I have Nate Bargatze tickets in May.
Well, what I love about Tiger Terry is that he introduces himself still, even though we know exactly who. Yeah, like we know Tiger Terry. But yeah, like I kind of think maybe he writes it. If I'm wrong, like I'll credit to him. Like that's really impressive. But I think
if he does write it, still credit to him.
Yeah.
Like it's better than what I'm going to write tonight.
Exactly. I've heard of Nike surgery where the doctors have to like get in there and take the shoe out. I've never heard of spitting toenails before.
I like it. So to answer Terry's questions, number 1, yes, the rotations are, like we talked about, are figured out. But the defense, Drew, like it is noticeably different.
Yeah, like I came into the season saying this was the highest ceiling defensively that any Dennis Gates team was going to have. They're up to 61 in defensive rating on KenPom right now. I think that they're probably a little bit better than that just because of how many turnovers they generate. They still give up kind of a high percentage shooting wise, but their rebounding has improved so much over the last few games, Gabe, that you can't get an extra possession off of them quite as easily anymore. Arkansas did in that first half today, but it came at the expense of giving up 52 points in the first half. Like John Calipari said, we tried to go big and we did not get the matchups we wanted. And so once Arkansas adjusted in that second half, they weren't getting to the boards nearly as much. And so I think that that's really been where the defense has made a turn is they're still getting turnovers, but they're also not giving up offensive rebounds anymore.
Yeah. Steve Richards has the best comment in the chat so far. I would give a $100 super chat for Tiger Terry's government name. All right, Tiger Terry, I'm just going to tell you, our next post-game show is after Ole Miss next Saturday. If you call in with the same Gabe opener, but then say like, this is Mark Johnson or whatever your name is, Steve Richards will give us the $100 super chat, and I will split it with you, Tiger Terry. I will send you half. So I agree. We kind of need Tiger Terry's government name, but also kind of I don't want to know what it is. I just want him to be Tiger Terry.
What if his name is I don't know. What if his name is Mark Mitchell? Like, what if it's secretly been him this whole time?
What if Tiger Terry is Charlton Young? I feel it's possible.
Yeah, that I would find believable.
Okay, yeah, we'll look into that possibility. Nobody's ever seen Tiger Terry and CY in the same place.
That's correct.
I'm not saying it's him, but you can't prove to me it's not him. So, All right, Billy, let's go to the next voicemail.
Gabe, it's Schiff. We're about to get hammered with snow in New Jersey, and I'm low on sweets and booze, so I got to go get those real quick. So I'll make this quick. 1, to quote Ice Cube, this team messes around and gets a triple-double. They have these huge leads, and then they kind of mess around, and the lead comes back. And today wasn't too close for comfort, but my point is, I guess, in the SEC, this league is so good. There might be a night this year where they don't fully step on the head of the snake when they need to. They keep a team around, and it really comes back to bite them. Little cause for concern. 2, I don't get the hate with Trevon Brazil. He was a rare diamond in the rough recruiting find by Konzo. He left because of a coaching search. Completely valid to me. Hasn't panned out at Arkansas partially due to injuries. It's like when you're cut up when your significant other leaves you, and the next time you see them, they're taking your order in the McDonald's drive-thru line. Like, you ask yourself, why were you so upset to begin with? 3rd, Frank Haith once made fun of me. If you remember this, my freshman year, because my first CD ever purchased was a Bee Gees CD. Well, to quote the Bee Gees, Gabe, Missouri basketball, you should be dancing. Goodbye.
I love that Schiff says, I'm going to keep it short, and then reads me a novel that quotes Ice Cube and the Bee Gees. Absolutely amazing. There was a point in there I disagreed with, but I've forgotten what it was by this point.
I think it was the lead, that they can't hold the lead.
Yeah, that might have been it. It looked like this is a good couple of weeks. This is not the best team in the SEC. They're going to lose some games, right? It's going to happen. There are going to be a couple of days where the shots don't fall. There's going to be another, oh my God, Dennis doesn't know what he's doing day. Like, it happens. Everybody in this league is like, outside of Auburn, what do you think the fewest losses in this league is? Like, what's good for second place in this league?
Man, that's a great question. I would say probably fewest. I'll go like 15-3.
I don't think anybody gets there.
Really?
I don't think anybody gets to 15. I think 14-4 is the ceiling for anybody other than Auburn. We'll see at the end. Oh, I know what I was going to disagree with that Schiff said was the Trevon Brazil comments. Look, I actually agree with Missouri fans here. That kid has, like, he wrecked his reputation here with tweets, with comments. He deserves it from Missouri fans. Now, not personal, not I hate you, whatever, but he deserved the booze today, and he deserves some pushback. So I'll disagree with that. I mean, he has every right to leave. I'm not disputing that point, but just leave and go play ball wherever you get paid to play ball. That's cool. You don't have to shit talk anybody on the way out the door. All right, Billy, if we still got voicemails, let's keep rolling.
Honestly, I just want to say, top to bottom, this was a great win. I think we're insanely deep, and I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on our transition from last year to this year. Obviously, transfers played a great part, but I think this team chemistry is just absolutely unreal right now, and I think we're only going to get better throughout the year. I think the whole entire country still doesn't know how great we are as a team, and I think this is not just me being biased, but honestly, as a basketball fan, just watching this team, I think that we are a top 10 team when we play good, or when we play to our standard, of how our talent across the whole entire court is just insane. So I think that Mizzou is a top 10 team in the nation. That's my thoughts.
Top 10, I mean, they have the potential. It might be a little high. And look, I'm always torn on this, right? Does chemistry cause winning, or does winning cause chemistry? I don't know. I'll say this, though. Last year was the closest 0-19 team I've ever seen. Like, Dennis has something that I think he is able to keep guys engaged. And, like, Tamar's bringing his daughter to every press conference, and Dennis is giving Tamar crap, and they're cracking jokes at each other. And, like, I do genuinely think they all like each other. Now, does that mean they're better at basketball? I don't really know, but I do think there's something to it.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say too. Like, maybe not top 10 in the country, but on any given night, I think that they're capable of beating a top 10 team, right? Like, if they play to the level that they're capable of, they're that kind of talented. The big question for me is, like, how consistent can they be through the rest of the year, right? Obviously, like, they're 4-0 right now, and that's really impressive, but there's a lot of games left, and they're going to get hit in the mouth at some point, and I'm curious to see how they bounce back from that. And then, like, I know that Schiff was kind of talking about it, like, it's not great that they are still struggling a little bit with big leads, but again, like, the final score is all that matter, but they might get caught at some point. So that's kind of one red flag for me.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say at some point there's going to be a game they don't lead by 15 points at halftime.
Sure.
But okay, we both agree they're not going to be a top 10 team. Where do you think they're ranked on Monday?
I'll say 18th. Is that fair?
You think that high? Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what everybody else has done. Like Memphis was 18 this week. Illinois was 19. They're not jumping either of those teams. They lost to both of them. But Michigan was 20. Michigan got beat. Ole Miss was 21. They got beat. I don't care what Utah State did. Missouri's better than them. Georgia lost a game this week, maybe two. Wisconsin, I don't know. They have John Tonje, but other than that, I'd put Missouri above them. I'd put Missouri. So I'll go somewhere in the 19 to 20 range probably.
Okay.
And there might be teams higher that lost. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say 18 just because, again, who's got better wins than Missouri right now with the Kansas game, with the Florida game, and then starting off 4-1 in SEC play? I just don't know how you make an argument against them right now.
And it's not just who's got better wins. I would be stunned if anybody really had better losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Missouri's worst loss this season is Memphis right now. And that's, Michigan lost to Minnesota this week on a buzzer beater, so I think their resume is incredibly strong. All right. I know we got one more voicemail, so let's hit that.
Hey, Gabe, this is Uncle Danny. First time, long time. Great win for the Tigers. Nice to see them go wire to wire. I don't think the margin ever got within single digits after we got to that blazing start in the first half. I think we're all prepared for a lot of heartburn there in the second half, as has been the script for most of the season when the Tigers get hot in the first half. But now that we're 15-3, I think it's safe to say that this Tigers team is legitimately good. Best start since the 2012 team, one of the greatest Mizzou teams of all time. I'm not sure this team is quite on that level. But what I can say with pure certainty, Gabe, is that all the Dennis haters, of which there were oh so many, were so fucking wrong. And none of them deserve to celebrate this season. As for most of us, the intelligent fans who never doubted Dennis, who understood there's going to be massive roster turnover, and he's a highly skilled coach and a great evaluator of talent and development, pretty sweet season for us. Mizzou, keep doing your thing, Gabe.
All right, Drew, I'm going to let you react to that. Then I'll be the guy that people get mad at.
Okay. Well, I don't know that it's completely unfair to say, I think people were fair to doubt Dennis after an 0-19 SEC record. Okay.
You can be the guy people get mad at, but I agree 100%.
Yeah, that was a bad season, and it's only his second year with the team. I think that people were fair to criticize that, right? But I also think it's fair to say, that was kind of a fluky year where they had a bunch of injuries and obviously some other stuff went wrong. But what he's doing this year, I think proves that what he did in his first year was probably closer to what he's actually capable of here. So I think that everybody's allowed to celebrate, I guess is my point.
Yeah, be happy. But last year did happen. And it was really if you never lost any belief, and I'm not saying jumped off the bandwagon and said fire him. I understand emotional overreactions online happen. But if you lost zero belief at any point during 0-19, then I want you to be my friend. Because you are the most loyal person I've ever met. I don't know how you could have watched last year and not at least have thought, should I not have asked if he was a deity on the message board, even if I was joking? How do you watch that season and just say, oh, no issues. I know for sure this dude's going to have us back in the tournament next year. Credit to you if you did, but I don't see how it happens.
Yeah. So again, I think it was fair to question whether he was the right guy, but I also think it's important to say you didn't go off the ledge, maybe, right? Like you said, the internet overreactions were a bit much, but there is a certain level of criticism that I think was warranted.
Also, you know what else is a bit much? Dennis Gates is a Hall of Fame coach and going to be here as long as Norm Stewart was, and he's going to be a man. I don't know, guys, because here's the beauty of college basketball, that you can go from 0-19 to the NCAA tournament now. You know where you could go right back to next year? Like, I'm not saying they're going to go 0-19, but like being good this year is not a guarantee you're good next year in this day and age. I mean, let's say, you know, Tamar Bates is done, right? Tony Perkins is done. Josh Gray's done. Let's say Mark Mitchell gets a wild hair and he thinks he's going to go chase the NBA. Let's say somebody comes in and offers Trent Pierce $2.5 million and none of these things are out of the question. So I think it's as dumb as it might have been to scream to fire him last year. It's not any smarter to say he's arrived and we're never going to suck again.
Yeah, and I know this is a touchy subject, but like what's going on with Jerome Tang right now? Like he had a really good, pretty good first 2 seasons. Not having a great season this year doesn't mean he's a bad coach, right? It means he's having a bad year. And like same could happen to Dennis next year, right? Jerome Tang got some big time transfers that just aren't really panning out right now. That could happen to anybody any season. Same thing with Arkansas. Like they got some pretty big names out of the portal. They're not really panning out this year. So again, it's fair to criticize. I don't think it's fair to overreact. And so I don't want to overreact in either direction.
Right. And I think that's actually, I think that might be Dennis's biggest strength. And like, you know, we joke that he's not actually human. You have to plug him in at night and so he can recharge and all that. Yeah. But like, you know, the only guy who never panicked during 0-19, Dennis Gates. And you know what he said after today's game? You guys are going to laugh, but I don't even think we're playing all that well. You know, now I think he thinks they're playing well, but he's making a point here, right? That's why his team was able to come back after a season-changing win at Florida and jump on Arkansas 18-2, because like his role is the same as I've always said my role is on our message board. When you guys think it's great, I've got to tell you the reasons maybe it's not as great as you think it is. And when you think it's all awful, I've got to tell you the reasons maybe it's a little bit better than you think it is. Like Dennis Gates' job is to be the emotional equilibrium of this program. And like, if you wrote the description of what Dennis Gates should do for a job, you would say he should be the emotional equilibrium for something.
He stays right here all the time.
Never moved. The only time he moved was, which game was it where he ran out on the court and I thought Illinois. He was going to assault the official? Okay. That's literally the only time I've thought he's one of us. I know it.
Man, I was courtside. I got to see him like jump. He was in front of me when it happened too. And that's the most fired up I've seen Dennis Gates before too. So, but yeah, like I think that's very intentional from him too, is like he wants to set the example for the rest of the team so that they also stay at an equilibrium. So like I think that he's in a pretty good spot right now. I think that he definitely is proving a lot of doubters wrong this season for sure.
Yeah. Hey, one thing real quick, Billy, I know you have to leave in like 2 minutes. If you have time, can you call up the Power Mizzou tweet or the Mizzou Hoops tweet, whatever, that has the screenshot of all the guys behind Gates in the interview? If you don't have time, I understand it, but I want to address this real quick because this is kind of what I'm going to write about. There was a shot of all the guys standing behind Dennis Gates kind of going like this during the post game, and Billy just had to log off. So we don't have that for you guys. It's on our Twitter feed. It's on Mizzou Hoops Twitter feed too. But, you know, I asked him what the message was there, and he just said, we're just not going to talk a lot about it. Like, nobody pays attention to us. We don't care. We're going to keep doing what we do. And I feel like that is now, like, that's what is going to become. That's Dennis Gates' version of something to prove, which has been Eli Drinkwitz's motto for the football team, right? This is like, we don't care what you think. We're just going to keep showing up.
We're going to keep hooping, I think is what Tamar Bates said.
Yeah.
So
I love we don't care as a program motto.
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal.
Can that be our motto?
100%. I mean, look, we've had like 9 F-bombs on this show. If we
Yeah.
cared at this point, I mean, it's way too late for that. So, all right. So just kind of, I guess, real quick, individual. This is a tough one for me. Player of the game in this one for you.
Ooh, great question. Okay, can I tell you who I think we haven't talked about enough? And I don't know if he's player of the game, but I just want to talk about him. Tony Perkins, right? I don't know that he had an outstanding game today, but 11 points, a rebound, 3 assists, kind of stepped up when Ant didn't really have it going early on. And here's the key part. Boogie Fland was a non-factor in this game. And I know Coach Cal talked about he's got a hurt hand, but he played a lot for having a hurt hand. And I think that Tony Perkins was a big reason why. Like, I think he was really physical with them, didn't let him get any shots off. Fland had like a runaway mid-range jumper that only like an NBA lottery pick could make. And that was like the only time I remember him scoring all day. So I think Tony Perkins was huge for them in this game.
I agree. Player of the game to me, Trent Pierce. 10 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 1 turnover in 19 minutes. Like, not maybe a complete statistical standout, but like every game he does something that I go, I didn't think he could do that this year. And like, again, we said 3 weeks ago, if there's a guy that takes this team to another level, I think it's him. I also want to shout out, I know people in the chat got mad about it. My favorite play of the entire game is with like a 14-point lead. Jacob Cruz is on a 1-on-0 break and pulls up and shoots a 3. Like, that is the embodiment of we don't care.
Well, and to defend Jacob a little bit, I think he saw that Arkansas had a defender or two getting back. He wasn't going to get to the rim in time to dunk it or try to dunk it again. So I understand the shot. Yeah, like I thought it was fine.
Okay.
By the way,
Cruz
like nobody would have complained if he made it. Let's put that out there too.
Right. It was so longtime Missouri fans are going to know what I'm talking about. There was a guy named Ali Farouk Manesh who pulled up with a 1-point lead in the NCAA tournament on Kansas and just fired a 3 from like 22 feet with like 24 seconds left on the shot clock. Nobody complained when that one went in, right? But it did make me laugh. Andrew says $1 per SEC win and our eventual NCAA seed. First of all, thank you for the super chat.
Wow.
Drew, over under a 4 seed for this team.
Right now or end of the year?
End of the year. No,
end of the year?
Project.
I'll say slightly under. I think that there's still a lot of good teams in the SEC that they might have some trouble with, but yeah, I don't think a 4 seed's out of the question though.
Yeah, if I could project it today, I'd go 5 or a 6.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
But yeah, I mean that's one game from being a 4. Somebody had asked if we're going to have post-game press conference clips. We do not tonight. The reason why is Connor McLean, who does our video, has gotten an opportunity to shoot the national championship game on Monday night in Atlanta. So he is already in Atlanta. So we did not have video at this game. We will going forward the rest of the home games, but no video. But Drew has a lot to write. I have a lot to write. So Drew, quick closing thought, from this one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of momentum with the team right now. I think that the chemistry is building. The ceiling is really high right now. Like, if you're not enjoying this season, I think that there's actually something wrong with you, because there's so much to like about this team right now. So I'll be in Austin next week covering the Texas game, and we'll find out a little bit more about the Tigers.
Yeah, look, you're a UT grad, so if fans are going, the one restaurant they've got to hit in Austin is what before that game?
Shoot, Vaqueros is really good. Tex-Mex place, get a margarita. It'll be the best one you've had in your life.
Perfect. Guys, we're going to kind of wrap it there. Want to once again thank the folks at the Bruning Law Firm for being the sponsors of our post-game shows all year long. We're going to do a few more. Like, we're not doing one Tuesday night because it's an 8:00 road game. We will be back here next week, Saturday after Ole Miss. We've got a few planned out, may add a few more in, but can't do it without the folks at the Bruning Law Firm. And do want to remind you, their information, if you've been watching on YouTube, has been scrolling across the bottom of the screen all the way along. But if you are ever in the situation where you feel like you've been injured, you've been wronged, the Bruning Law Firm has your back. You can get relief you deserve quickly and get back to your life. Call them for a free consultation at 573-400-2796. Again, 573-400-2796. And just do me a favor, if you get in touch with them, just tell them you heard about them on Power Mizzou. Kind of, let them know that what they're doing makes a difference and is getting out to people. 573-400-2796. Once again, the number to call. If you watched on YouTube, hit the like button, comment as you have been. Subscribe to the channel, share the show. If you're listening on the podcast, hey, just say nice things about us. And even if you're not listening on the podcast, just say nice things about us anyway. Yeah. We're good people, man. We deserve that. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us all night tonight. Once again, Missouri an 83-65 winner over Arkansas. Drew King and I going to get to pounding our keyboards. So appreciate you hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.